On May 22, 2025, the U.S. House of Representatives narrowly passed President Trump's flagship bill, one that promises lower taxes, stronger borders, and economic revival. But behind the big headlines and loud applause is a quieter truth. This bill may feel like a win today, but for most Americans, the joy will be short-lived. So what does this bill actually do? If you rely on tips or overtime, those earnings won't be taxed anymore. That's real money for real people. Parents get a bump in their child tax credit, and the standard deduction goes up slightly too. But let's not get swept away, because while everyday workers get scraps, the wealthy get a feast. Business taxes are slashed permanently. High earners in expensive states get bigger deductions, and corporations walk away with billions. If you're already rich, this bill makes you richer. At the same time, the safety nets so many people rely on are being pulled tighter. Medicaid, harder to get. Food assistance, more restrictions. States will be forced to carry more of the burden, and many simply can't. If you're elderly, disabled, or just struggling, life's about to get tougher. And the national debt, it's expected to jump by nearly $4 trillion. That's not just a number. That's your kids' schools, your roads, your Medicare, your Social Security. They say these tax cuts will pay for themselves, but that's the same story they told in 2017, and it didn't work then either. This bill wasn't built for the working class. It wasn't made for single moms, retirees, or anyone scraping to get by. It was built for those already winning, and everyone else gets just enough to stay hopeful while the real benefits climb up the ladder. It is indeed big and bold, and, depending on where you sit in society, maybe even beautiful. But don't be fooled by the wrapping. For most Americans, this bill is not a gift, it's a loan, and the repayment will come due sooner than we think. Before we dive in, hit the like button so this video reaches many more Americans. Please consider subscribing and sharing to give us a nudge in the algorithm. We're doing our part to save this nation.
Speaker, this is a moment I'm never going to forget, because tonight hundreds of Republican members of Congress are wanting to line up to vote for the biggest transfer of wealth from the working poor and the working class to billionaires and mega corporations that we've seen in this country's history. This is a deep moment of betrayal, a complete absence of loyalty to the people that we represent, and an abandonment of the values of hard work and dignified life. Mr. Speaker, I'm 28 years old. My generation already expects that we'll never be able to afford a home, to get out of debt, to retire, to live comfortably. And no, it's not because we've lived beyond our means, but it's because we've been denied the means to live. Donald Trump and congressional Republicans are making it worse, gutting Medicaid and food assistance to give tax cuts to billionaires and special interests. And all of the things that you could give tax breaks for, this bill will cut taxes on silencers for guns. For those who don't know, gun silencers can be attached to a gun to muffle the sound of a gunshot. These silencers make it harder to identify and respond to the source of the gunshots. Earlier, I put forth an amendment to strip this tax cut for the gun lobby, and House Republicans wouldn't even let it come up for a vote. And then the Republicans made the bill worse in their manager's amendment by making silencers completely unregulated. My question is, why did this get added to the bill just a couple hours ago? Which congressional Republican just couldn't stand to vote for the horrible bill until it promised even more death to people? And so, America, we got to be very clear and truthful about this budget. Laws for gun manufacturers to make more money off of the death of children and our people? Yes. Food for children to eat? No. Healthcare for seniors, disabled Americans, and millions more? No. Resources to help working families fight to ends meet? No. This is why they've been told to not host any town halls back in their districts. That's why this debate is happening in the middle of the night. It's nothing short of theft. And congressional Republicans are really helping me understand why half of this country doesn't vote. It's because they'll look people in the eyes and make promises only to come here in the middle of the night to advance a bill that will take away the benefits that they have earned.
Good morning. While you were sleeping, the House of Representatives passed a big, beautiful spending bill the budget bill was passed. That includes cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and other essentials for Americans to survive. Why? So the rich can have tax cuts, so the rich can have more money, as if they need it. It passed 215-214, narrowly, by one vote. Democrats currently have 3 vacancies because of the passings of Sylvester Turner, Jerry Colony. I forgot the other one, quite frankly. So they're handicapped. They're already handicapped being the minority. But those 3 seats were crucial. Imagine if all 3 of those were filled. This would not have passed. But we can't think about that now because it did pass. So, again, I ask you, if, and it is a big if, currently there are senators that are not in agreement with this bill, and there is the likelihood it will go through even more amendments and not end up being anything close to what they want it to be. So I'm not going to ignore that possibility. Maybe, just maybe, there are some moderate, true Republicans who will fight for the country. I'm not holding my breath. So I'll say if, although I want to say when. But if this budget bill does pass and it gets signed, what are we going to do about it? Again, we got options. We can do a general strike. We can go full Malcolm X, or we can do nothing. Just put our head in the sand and just wait 2 and 4 years to hopefully get them out of there. What are we going to do about it? You let me know, honestly. So, update. I am now on Instagram, Raw Cognizance. Go to my profile, my link tree, and follow me there. I think I can link it to my TikTok. If I haven't done that already, just find me on my link tree. It's easy to find. Raw Cognizance on all platforms. This isn't good, y'all. They are determined to be an authoritarian government. And they think they can get away with it. They are going to pay for this, one way or another. Anyways, follow me on all platforms. Go to my link tree to do so. You're not crazy.
Hey, Nurse Shauna. So on Thursday night, in the middle of the night, literally, the House of Representatives signed along the budget, and that's going to go to the Senate next. So I want you to know that this is a pretty devastating budget. As a matter of fact, it increases our federal deficit by about $3.8 trillion over a 10-year period. This also cuts Medicaid for people who lose their jobs by imposing very strict work requirements. We'll get into that a little more later. And it triggers the largest cuts ever seen to Medicare. Okay, this begins in 2026 at 4% and it doubles thereafter. Let's get into it a little bit. So as a nurse, this bill is pretty troubling to me, and I want to make sure that you know why. Now, as a citizen of the United States, if you are silent now, I want you to know that your children and your grandchildren may be affected by these deep cuts to public programs. So this bill eliminates funding for services like birth control, prenatal care, and family planning for the nation's biggest abortion provider, Planned Parenthood, who services over 2 million patients a year at nearly 600 health clinics, most of which provide care to underserved communities. And Planned Parenthood has said if they are defunded, 200 of these clinics are at risk of closing. So the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office did a preliminary estimate, and they have said that the proposal would reduce the number of people with health care benefits by 8.6 million over the course of a decade. You might be wondering, well, how do we know if it hasn't happened yet? Well, shockingly, this is not the first time that we've imposed work requirements. And as a matter of fact, we know that it does not increase the amount of people working. So in Arkansas, a work requirement was enacted that kicked people off for noncompliance. More than 18,000 people in that state lost their health coverage after it kicked in 2018. The program was so damaging that it was later blocked by a federal court. Fun fact, 92% of people who are enrolled in Medicaid are already working, caregiving, attending school, or they're disabled. So about 8% of the 71 million adult enrollees who would need to meet these new requirements, of those people, an estimated 5 million people are estimated to completely lose coverage altogether. And this is according to the previous estimates of the bill from the Congressional Budget Office. So Eduardo Conrado, the president of Ascension, which is a healthcare system that operates hospitals across 10 different states, points out that the increased red tape and eligibility checks is most likely to result in people being wrongfully terminated from the Medicaid program. This is likely, of course, to affect safety net hospitals in low income and rural areas the most, where Medicaid accounts for more than 30% of clinic or hospital revenue. This version of the bill also raises the work requirements, which are already in place for some 42 million people who are on food stamps, to age 65. And it extends it to parents now who have children that are at least 7 years old. This places an estimated 6 million adults at risk of losing SNAP benefits. So, to summarize this big, beautiful bill, the bill triggers over $490 billion in cuts to Medicare. It's estimated to cost 8.6 million people healthcare coverage. It could cost 6 million people their access to food security, while adding 3.8 and up to $5 trillion in debt to the federal deficit. The result? The top 10% of earners are getting immense tax breaks, while the middle class Americans will actually pay more, and the bottom 10% of earners will disproportionately suffer from cuts to safety net programs, including the very elderly and children, and those living in rural areas where healthcare facilities will be forced to close.
So what can you do about it? Well, you can go online, you can write to your senator, you can join a protest in your area, you can also call your senator, and all you have to do is call the U.S. Capitol switchboard operator and ask them to transfer you to your senator. The phone number is 202-224-3121. Hopefully this helps.